Hey, here we are. What is up, world? Your boy is back, Daryl Stinson with the Second Chance Live Show. And boy, do I have a guest for you, Mr. Jeff Olson. Man, we met and connected on Clubhouse. I can't remember what room we were in. Do you remember that room that we were in?
Some club, some room, some dark, smoky joint somewhere.
And, it's just one of those things where, uh, yeah, he's a former athlete, but the way that he spoke, I could tell he's been through a process. You can tell people who have been successful but avoided the inner work versus those who have been successful and done the inner work. And I could tell by his poise, by his remarks that he made, that he was a person who has been through some things and learned and reflected and has both been successful from a outward perspective, but also an inward perspective, which is so important because I knew as a former Division I athlete who was good how to be externally successful and hide my inward brokenness from the world. And I could tell that Jeff was not a man that did that. And so really excited to learn from him, his expertise. You guys know how this works. I'll read his official bio. And then as I'm reading it, I want you to be thinking about your friends, your social media following, your stalkers. And I want you to be thinking about who could benefit from this message, and go ahead and click that share button because we want to be generous. Jeff has agreed to just give us his time. And the best thing that you can do right now is click that share button, even if you're watching the replay, because you never know what one insight perspective can help change a person's life. So, my friend Jeff is a business and social entrepreneur. After retiring from professional athletics, Jeff had successful stints in the financial and technology industries. In 2000, after a health crisis with his dad, he and his wife co-founded Well Nourished Worldwide, which delivers production, consumption, and distribution of innovative health foods. That's why he looks better than me. Jeff is the co-founder of the Metro Denver Health and Wellness Commission, and he's also the co-founder of the Altius Farms. He serves on boards, and he also, what I love about him is he's a two-time Olympian, and he is also, like myself, a TEDx speaker, and he's a three-time national champion, Pan-American gold medalist, and he's also a leading advocate for using America's next Olympic bid to elevate global health to higher ground and steward health into becoming a pillar of the Olympic movement. So I love Jeff. He reports that he married up, much like I say about my wife. So we have that in common too, with his incredible wife who has 3 wonderful daughters. So we're both girl dads, and lives happily and healthily in Denver, Colorado, which is a beautiful place. It's just in Colorado. Oh God, I guess it felt like it was like 2 months ago, but it's probably about almost 6 months ago now. And It's such a beautiful place, man. I attended a retreat there, and I'm trying to figure, it wasn't Denver. Golly, I'm drawing a blank on the name. If it comes to me, I'll remind you. But it was a beautiful place.
Boulder, or was it up in the mountains, or Colorado Springs? Or?
It was mountains. And if I say the name, it was kind of like a real cool. I guess there was like some old bar that's real famous or something.
There's a few of those out here.
Yeah. Now, are there? Okay, I'm the name's gonna come to me, and then I'm gonna interrupt our show for it. But Jeff, man, I love what you're doing, man, and I did have some prepared questions I want to ask you, but I also want this to be a little free flowing. So let me just start with allowing you the floor to give us sort of like the 5-minute version of the personal story. And before you do that, I just want to say, and I mentioned this in my earlier remarks, that man, from what I know of you thus far, you have my highest respect. I can tell you've done some inner work, and that's important to me, especially for the type of people that we tend to attract in our world as athletes who are trying to figure out what vulnerability is, what weakness is, how do I share my emotions other than anger? How do I have a healthy outlet that isn't pushing somebody around or out competing somebody? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when that thing is gone, we got to find different and new innovative ways to do that. And so I love that you have a health and wellness company and that you've done that work yourself. And so I just wanted to throw that your way. All right. So let us know a little bit more about your story and your journey.
Yeah. What's my origin story? Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the mountains. I was a hyperactive kid before Ritalin came onto the scene. So I found sport, which was good. That occupied my kinetic nature. I ended up gravitating into downhill skiing, which encapsulated being outside, the elements, speed, danger, adrenaline, all that kind of stuff. I kind of did all the ball sports growing up, and I was just a sports kid. So in the context of that fueled my energy, and I found skiing, fell in love with it, and it drove me. It was my inner anchor. It compelled me. You still there, Daryl? I don't know. May have lost Daryl. Maybe he'll be coming back. I'm just going to riff. So in any event, I was fortunate to find a passion that no one could touch. It was mine. It was singular focus. So, as athletes, you all know that. And it drove me till 29 years old when I had to retire due to injury. Overtraining ended my professional athletic career. I thought more was better. And so I did heavy squats, heavy plyometrics, actually ruined my patella tendon. So I had to step down just as I was really in my prime, and that was hard. But, as you know, when you retire as an athlete or you're looking into retirement, that's a weird time for athletes. Like, the identity's all wrapped up in that. So in the context of what's next, when you're not on the field of play anymore, it was an interesting time. And I did one thing well. And this is maybe one of the things you can write down. I kept moving. The phone stopped ringing. I didn't have a gold medal in my pocket. I know plenty of gold medalists who are floundering and challenged and broke and, all that to say, I just kept moving. And what I ended up doing is I came in. I just riffing, Daryl. I was just riffing. We lost you there for a second.
Can you hear me? I can hear you just fine, man.
Oh, okay.
I just moved myself to the bottom.
Oh, okay.
The computer was acting wonky, and I didn't want it to interfere with your keynote here. You didn't know you were doing a whole TEDx talk all over.
Wow, I was like, I guess I don't know where Daryl went, but I'll just keep rolling.
No, this is good, man. Keep it going.
No, I mean, I just kept moving, and I came to a fork in the road where I was gonna finish my degree in college. The college track was not the track of my sport of skiing, as in other sports. So I had a few years left of college that I wanted to finish. And when I got kind of the end of my general ed, I had to pick a major. And I was like, I don't know, Jack, you know what, about money or business or finance. So I trained my weakness. I went to that. That's how I picked literally how I picked my degree. I was like, what do you know nothing about? I'll go that way. So I said practical, learn about money, learn about business. But I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I was intellectually ignorant. I didn't know what I did. I was naive, right? Because as a professional athlete, I was kind of living in a bubble. So that was a very practical degree. Got my first job. I ended up working for an investment management firm on Wall Street, and so I learned the money business. It was a practical tool for life. I learned about the way the world works when it comes to capital and business formation and, investments. And, but I was traveling about 70% of the time. We started having kids. That didn't work. The math being gone that much. Jumped into technology for a brief stint. And I got into sales. And that's a whole other evolution of maturing and growing. Because when I was an athlete, I thought salespeople were icky. And then I come to find out that the whole world is sales, if you don't know about that. But that's a whole other conversation. Great book called To Sell is Human, if you want to tackle that as a book read. We're all, the business of moving others is the tagline. So I did it in technology. And then my dad had some health challenges, as you read in my bio. And we were introduced to sort of some health interventions for him. My wife, as I said, married up, as you said, and I kind of followed her lead and never looked back. And so it's been very successful, very blessed, given us a lifestyle to, work out of the house, raise our kids, giving me a lot of free time to do other stuff. So now I do some startup consulting and fun projects because I have the time, and do other philanthropic stuff. But that's the Cliff Note version of my life right there. You got the down and dirty.
Wow. Man, talk about, if you don't mind, just kind of your fathers and because that seemed like, from your bio and what I could gauge online, it seemed like a kind of a pivot point in the sense that now you're getting introduced to other forms of health, and because of what your father's going through. So talk to us a little bit about how that shifted your life, and what was the greatest lesson and gift that season of your life gave you.
Yeah, you know, he had cancer, and you get a lot of armchair quarterbacks coming out of the woodwork, you know, when you're sort of in the white noise, deer in the headlights, trying to figure out what to do. I'd always lived a healthy lifestyle. My wife had always lived a healthy lifestyle. My dad, to a certain extent, for his generation, but obviously areas to improve. And it was a teachable moment for him. And we all come to those teachable moments, right? And he adapted, right? So I'm in this new theme in my life. You know, we're doing a whole project called, our whole conference we're building for 2022 with a bunch of athletes and human performance people, called Project Adapt. But you know, it's not the strongest that survive. It ain't the smartest that survive. It's those that can adapt. And adaptability is coachable, it's teachable, it's accessible to anyone and everyone, anytime. It's, can you adapt? You don't have to be the smartest, you don't have to be the strongest. Can you adapt? And so he adapted his behaviors, his lifestyle, his ways. And boy, do we need that in the world we live in today. People need to adapt. And they need to, you know, a great way to adapt is to start, you know, like you do when you're an athlete, you play with others that are better than you. So I put myself on the field of play in business and in life and in social environments and in the context of community. And those you look up to, admire in business and the community, kind of like those you admire as young athletes growing up, you learn by rolling around with those people. And so he adapted. And so for my father, it sent my wife and I on a discovery path for him. And it initially got my wife sort of launching a side hustle, side gig out of the house, because we had started having children. And then she started paying the mortgage with her little side hustle. And I'm like, tell me more about that thing. And I wasn't looking for it. It kind of came out of left field. But, you know, if you're paying attention and the antenna are up and you're humble enough to be curious. I guess I was curious, right? Another character trait I think is those people that I admire most is curiosity. So yeah, so his health challenge sent us on a discovery path, which ended up opening up some doors, and we learned some things. And then my wife, you know, through her side hustle in the health and wellness space, put us in a position where I could join her full time and leave the job world and working for the man and you know, be independent. So
yeah, man, that is pivot. I'm still stuck there on adapting and being able to pivot is so important. But the challenge I know that some people face when they hit a crisis like that is being able to see beyond the initial pain and the frustration and the anger of the moment to what it is the lesson is, or the pivot they should make, or the, in your words, the adaptation they should pursue. What was it about you? Was it your Olympic background? Was it just something you were raised with that enabled you to see beyond the pain into the purpose of that moment?
So we all have like the amateur Jeff and the pro Jeff, and they sit on my shoulder, like the amateur bad news bear Jeff, and then like the pro gamer Jeff. And, you know, there's a dialogue there. So, you know, I have fun with the bad news bears Jeff, and I, you know, stumble, mumble, fumble, grumble, and are humbled with the bad news bears Jeff. But then the gamer's like, well, what would the gamer Jeff do? What would the pro Jeff do? So, you know, it usually has to do with walking into the light, you know, abundance, love, just playing bigger with the world, right? The world needs you to play bigger. How would pro Jeff play bigger? And access as an athlete, that's a narrative that we can tap back into, right? And we understand kind of the difference between an amateur and a pro, just as a narrative coming out of athletics. So that story in my head kept, you know, helped me catch myself when I was going bad news bears on myself and stumbling and saying, wait a second, what would Pro Jeff do? So I don't know if that makes sense, but it works for me, and I use it all the time. It helps me get going and stop wallowing. And if I've done anything well in life, is I've just kept on the field of play and kept moving. And the moment you step off the field of play, and this is metaphorically just in life, and you're a spectator and you're armchair quarterbacking, you're armchair quarterbacking the world, you're armchair quarterbacking TV, you're armchair quarterbacking this, that's generally, if you can catch yourself in that moment and say, well, Pro Jeff would actually be on the field of play instead of being a spectator. So I don't know if that makes sense. But.
No, it makes perfect sense. In fact, it's something that I didn't recognize I did as an athlete. But when I was working in this current business season I'm in, and learned about NLP, and one of my coaches, Mike Zeller, is a master at the NLP game.
Yeah,
and he has you find an alter ego per se, or a higher version of yourself that tells that lesser version of yourself to take the back seat and lets that higher version of yourself, lead your life. And
it's the angel and the devil, right? That I got Jeff thing 1, thing 2,
Hey, Dr. Seuss was on to something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you sit on a number of boards and talk about, and that's one of the ways I'm sure you give back. But when it comes to selecting the organizations you support, what's your thought process? What are you looking at? If this is something that I'm now going to put my time, my know-how, and my network and whatever else you're contributing as a board advisor, what's your thought process behind selecting amongst many other opportunities to work with the organizations that you're on the board of?
Well, when I was younger, and this was, 15 plus years ago, I was just trying to be selfish and network,
Mm-hmm.
So I had areas of interest. I had things that spoke to me personally, that I wanted to be a young hustler, right? And because I was trying to recreate myself after sport, and I left sport. I didn't hang around sport when I quit skiing. I quit skiing. Like, I didn't hang around. As I said, I kind of cut the umbilical cord, and I knew I needed to recreate myself away from that sport, and I could come back to it on my own terms someday. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, I started a ski company last year with Bodie Miller, who's the most successful U.S. male athlete ever. But I came back to it 20 years later after. Anyway, so I guess, well, lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
We're talking about God, you made me forget. I was lost in your story. Yeah, I was lost in your story. And maybe it wasn't meant to be, man. Oh, I know what it was. It was, I was asking you about your selection and your thought process on the nonprofit.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I was just young. I said, I got to plug myself into community. Mm-hmm. And one of the easiest ways to do that is volunteer your time to worthy organizations, right? Because people are hungry for that. So I did. And it was a great way for me to get plugged into the business community here in Denver. People with capacity, leaders, just good people, right? And that was initially. Now, 15 years later, I've sort of stayed involved in many of those. Some I've moved on and still stay in touch. But now it's more feeling like back then I could contribute my sweat equity to those causes. Mm-hmm. Now I can add some, as they say, wisdom and wallet, to those causes now. So
yeah, wonderful. So a lot of athletes talk about transferable skills that helped us to be elite as athletes that now transfer and help us be successful in whatever endeavor we pursue beyond the game. What are one or two qualities or characteristics that you have helped you be successful that you learned from the game of sports?
Well, the first one is curiosity. So being a student of the game, like as in my sport, or any sport, if you're a student of it, you're always curious and fascinated with that incremental discovery, new advantage, new thing, new whatever. It's going to help you level up a little bit. And that's a never ending process. Refining your craft, learning new technology, getting some third-party instruction, new frame of reference, coming at it. You kind of deconstruct the elephant and put it back together. And so just that, I guess, curiosity and hustle, translates to life. And then I think athletes, if they're anything, they are ruthlessly practical and they will do what works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I sort of took that mindset into the rest of my life. And I didn't know what was going to work, but I knew I would, figure it out. Right. So, because when that loss of identity happens, it took me a decade to sort of find my John Hancock, my signature, my personality, who was Jeff Olson beyond an old ex-athlete, because that identity, when that's gone, that's a hard time. But I didn't wallow. I didn't victim. I didn't feel, I just kept moving, man. And so if there's anyone out there that's wallowing, and man, just get moving. And you don't even have to know where you're going. Just start moving.
Mm-hmm.
Deep down that you want to have, what the things you want in life, but you don't know necessarily how to get there. And so some people are fortunate. Well, okay, so big life lesson. When I was a young kid, I knew I wanted to be a ski racer. I knew I wanted to go to the Olympics. I knew I wanted to be the best in the world. And it was singular, identifiable. I named it. I claimed it. No one could touch it. It was mine. But when I retired, that thing was gone. And so I went from having a massive anchor or a big sail to no sail and no anchor out in the big sea. And so what I learned in that transition is, that's probably what a lot of my friends felt like growing up as young kids. They don't have that thing.
Right.
They have the smorgasbord of options. We live in the world of abundance, and you've got, you can do anything. But I had one thing I wanted to do. And so I learned sort of empathetically that, this is what it's like to not know what you want to do with your life.
Right.
And that's most people. Like I was blessed to be given this inner thing that drove me, and that passion. And when it was gone, I was like, this is what most everyone else probably feels like. Yeah. So the life skill of, and then the other thing is, being, and I guess I didn't consciously understand this intellectually as an athlete, but I did it as an athlete. Kind of like you said, you didn't realize, you didn't maybe have the words for it, but you did it.
Yeah.
It's we used a lot of video analysis in our sport. We would watch video almost every day, and that perspective of seeing yourself, you could see things that you couldn't otherwise. And so right. I guess all that to say that the point here is it revealed a lot of blind spots.
Yeah.
That were just plain to see. They were obvious once you saw them. And so I took that thinking out into my adventures, being fascinated, curious, open to discovering my blind spots, which I have many. But that's, I guess the teachable concept here is you know what you know, right? And you know what you don't know. Like, I don't know how to do heart surgery, and I know that I don't know how to do heart surgery. But it is that third domain of you don't even know what you don't even know.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's where all growth and possibility and discovery and abundance and life opening up and the world you don't even know what you don't even know. And that's kind of what playing bigger sort of represents is, it's unlocking that blind spot, because that's where growth really starts to happen. And when you're growing, you're generally a pretty happy person. Like if you're growing, That's kind of a turnkey to happiness in
Yeah.
a certain sense is growth. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I want to camp there for just a second about the you don't know what you don't know. And I noticed that with athletes, that is a transferable skill. That is a asset that we have, is that you were forced to watch film and face your ugliness. I'll never forget, and I'm sure you have some of your own stories. But being in I had a very slow get off in football. So like
Yeah.
yeah, you know what that means? Okay, cool.
Yep.
So for those of you who don't know what that means, it means like you're in this 3-point stance, kind of like a track runner at the beginning of a track meet, and then when they hike the ball, that's when you're able to go. And the faster that you can move in the first millisecond, half a second, the better advantage you have over your opponent. So I was slow because I was tall and I was pop straight up, and you're supposed to move forward.
Right.
And my coach was trying to get me to understand that, but they didn't teach me that in high school because my high school coaches weren't the best. But he comes in the meeting room, and we're in our position meeting with all the defensive linemen, and he says, "Stinson, this is Butch Jones, right?" He goes, "Stinson, let me show you something, man. Your get off is way too slow. Those guys are gonna destroy you, man." So he turns on the film, and he goes, "Let me show you how slow you are." And he puts it in slow motion, and he goes, "Beep, beep, beep. You hear that? You hear the dump truck? That's how slow you're moving. You're a dump truck out there." And then, everybody's laughing and stuff like that. But that developed thick skin in me. And then when I got in corporate or, higher ed, everybody's sensitive, man. And it's like, we try to do the sandwich thing where you tell me something good, then tell me like the constructive criticism, then wrap it up in something good. And I'm like, just give it to me straight, man. Like I want to get better. And I don't know if that has that been your experience, that it's usually athletes are really great at constructive criticism, whereas other folks, we have to kind of be careful with the way that we give feedback. I don't know if that's something that you've encountered or not, but
yeah. I mean, I think athletes that's why a lot of employers like to hire athletes, because they do have a thick skin, and they do take criticism, and some athletes, not all athletes. Now, so there's two. This has been an ongoing debate with another Olympian buddy of mine. Is we've kind of compartmentalized athletes into two sort of post-athlete, retired athlete camps.
Okay.
It's those athletes that were kind of their own 24-hour coach. They had a team, they had a system, they had experts, they had people, but they were coaching themselves, and so they were a self-contained, ball of movement, and they took initiative when they're in the gaps,
right,
in the empty spaces. And what I mean by that is then there are whole other athletes who just grew up being told what to do, and they just did everything they were told, and perhaps nothing more. And you can go very far if you have great coaching by just following and doing everything you were told what to do.
Right.
But it's pretty obvious to understand that to be the best in the world, you need both, right? And so great coaching and and so what that translates out after post-athletic career is, and this is anecdotal, I don't have any science on this, but those that take the initiative and those that are, sort of more kind of captains, they don't need to be told what to do. They go do. I realized after about 6, 7, 8 years in the corporate world, I was like, there's a lot of mediocrity in business. And it's like, I think I could do this business thing on my own. And so the entrepreneurial thing kicked into my brain. I was like, I would rather, because as an individual sport, right? I was like, oh, okay. But that's another learning that I had is it's one thing to lead yourself. It's another thing to lead others. And that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, so I guess the teachable thing is, were you an athlete that was always being just told exactly what to do and that's what you did? Or were you an athlete that was told what to do, but you actually did other things or thought outside the box a little, or yeah. And so all that to say, I have been an entrepreneur now with my wife for 15, plus years, and I can't imagine going back to a job, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just not for me.
Right.
And so, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was when I retired, and I was so ignorant and so naive. And what I've learned, in a certain way, athletes are entrepreneurs on the field of play. Pick your sport. They're entrepreneurial. And what does an entrepreneur do? They do everything required and everything necessary, and ethically, within the lines. But athletes are entrepreneurs on the field of play, and entrepreneurs are actually athletes on the field of play of business. And so, so I guess the kind of ending this segment maybe on what I took from skiing. The other thing that I didn't know at the time, but I've come to realize is a pretty profound life skill is, as I say, I had 10,000 hours dancing and playing and jousting with fear in my sport of downhill ski racing. 70, 80 miles an hour. I've seen people die in front of my eyes, crashing at that speed. Can be a lot of physical damage. I've had 13 surgeries and 18 broken bones, and so the being able to dance and play alongside fear and work with fear and have fear focus you and fear elevate you and I didn't, that was just part of the thing, part of the adrenaline rush when you're young in your 20s. But now looking back, I was like, oh, okay, I learned how to basically, fear, finally a worthy competitor, like that. And that's not what most people grow up with, is learning how to master fear.
Right.
And that's what my business experience is. Most people, employees, entrepreneurs, are stopped by fear, or disabled by fear, or disarmed by fear. And fear stops a lot. Fear stops more dreams than failing ever did.
Yeah, that's so true, man. Fear is one of those things that keeps so many people from moving forward and keep you from making sales calls. I did my TEDx talk on overcoming rejection, which is really, when people are afraid of rejection, that's one of their huge fears. That's why people are afraid to speak in public and afraid to make sales calls, and because it's like I don't want to face that rejection, because there's too much of my work tied to my identity, and I can't separate the two to know that just because someone says no to it doesn't mean they're saying no to me as a person and a human being. So I'm with you. I'm tracking with you. I would like to take just a brief moment to celebrate. Apparently, I am now approved to stream on LinkedIn. About time, LinkedIn. I've applied like 100 times, and I got friends with less following and less.
Right on, man. Congratulations.
They keep getting improved, and I'm getting a little jealous. And so I don't know if they were listening to me. I was on somebody else's live stream the other day, and they were like, "Oh, I gotta love to come on your show." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm trying to get LinkedIn to approve it, and they haven't approved it."
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. So you're my first LinkedIn live guest, and I see that Monica Miller here says, "Jeff, great advice for any athlete transitioning life after sport. Keep moving." Monica's great, man. She's done a lot of work in the past. She was once with the NCAA with their after the game department, done a lot of work there, and is still doing a lot of impact in the world. So thanks, Monica, for tuning in on LinkedIn, engaging.
That's great.
So welcome to a whole new world, man. From Twitch to LinkedIn, we're everywhere, I suppose.
Very cool.
Thank you, Deanna. Deanna says congrats. I see you right on LinkedIn.
Cool.
So guys, thanks for engaging. Jeff, before we head off, man, I'd love for you to touch on what you're doing now. And I know you got a lot of irons kind of in the pot, but what would you like to share in this moment for people that are like, man, this guy Jeff is just a solid guy. I want to support what he's doing. I want to get in his world. Where would you direct people to, and why?
Well, I'll give you three things. So I got a brand new thing, a steady Eddie, tried and true thing, and then another project that is somewhere, I guess, kind of in the middle. I'm in the healthy living space. I'm in the health food business, lifestyle business. I've been circling around human performance for 30 years as a retired guy and an athlete guy, and trying to help people live on the right side of their own bell curve. If you know the bell curve, sort of, your A life versus your B life or C life or D life. How do we live on the right side of that bell curve? And so the Steady Eddie thing that I've been doing for 15 plus years with my wife is health food. So we have pioneered some categories in health food. We're category leaders in health food in the area of functional food. Functional food is nothing more than food on purpose. It's really trying to use food as a power tool in the toolkit of making yourself and fueling yourself and conditioning yourself. And that's really my day job is the human performance aspects of food. And human performance is pregnancy. Human performance is better circulation for a diabetic. Human performance is more energy all day for athletes recovery. Human performance is just getting the body better. Mm-hmm. And food is perhaps the most powerful tool in the toolkit to condition and fuel and build the body better. So that's my day work, my day job.
So does that mean I cannot eat Chick-fil-A?
What's that?
So does that mean I cannot eat Chick-fil-A? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, probably not every day. Yeah. No. So here's where the rubber hits the road. As an adult male, minimum servings of fruits and vegetables a day for just Daryl average 9 servings a day. Daryl, you could do 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. That's for just average Daryl.
Geez. So what about like the scoop of superfoods in my protein shake? Does that count?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. If it's quality, if it's good, if you know it, and you can read the ingredients, and
just one scoop though. Just one scoop.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't want you to double up. I mean, look, here's my game. My game is to get more nutrient dense food matter into people's bodies, understanding that if you cram more nutrient dense matter into your body over time, there will be good things happening to your body. That's just science. So that's my day job. And then my brand new fresh thing is we're launching this conference around human performance. Pretty exciting. It's called Project Adapt.
Oh.
Playing off adapt. That's why I'm in the adapt theme of my life right now, because it's just a term that's accessible to anyone. The Project Adapt, and we're looking at the 5 pillars of human performance around eating, moving, thinking, regenerative medicine, and then technology. So those are the 5 pillars. We're going to flesh them out. So that's a new kind of fun thing. We're working on an online conference in the fall, and then a live conference in Orlando in the spring of 2022. And then kind of middle of the road thing is being in the health food business. We also have some really cool, fun ways to grow food. We have these vertical tower technologies that it's called aeroponics, and we help people grow greens and herbs and vine crops up in towers with no soil. I did a TED talk on that, and we have a big greenhouse full of 350 towers in Denver, and they're residential units, and so that's another way to help people, eat more good food, is help people grow more good food. Yeah. So those are the things that keep me busy. And then I've got some other philanthropic things. I'm helping a buddy start a new company. He's my neighbor. He got a patented global invention, so I'm blessed to have some other things that are fun and kicking. And but yeah, if people want to connect with me, they just go to @OliUp on Instagram, or there's my bio link in there, and you can connect with me however you see fit.
Love it, man. Well, you convicted me to eat more vegetables, because I am far from 9. So.
Oh, dude. Yeah, we can help you level up in that domain.
I'm gonna have to go to wellnourished.com and take a look. I've since I work with athletes, I get a lot of samples and products, and I always say it's so hard to tell what's what, man. And some of the
do this. Go to my Instagram. Go to my bio link.
Yeah.
The first link is eat.
Okay.
Just click on it, and then we've got some resources there for you, and hit me up if you want to know want more info.
Okay, I got you, man. I got you. Well, guys, again, let's thank Jeff for coming on. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in, on and off, and for those that are watching the replay, we appreciate you. Man, we probably didn't even scratch the surface of.
No, we're just getting going, Daryl. We were just getting started
of just the wisdom, but we did talk about some things. You know, what I learned about people of wisdom, Jeff, is that oftentimes people of wisdom say more stuff on accident than most people say on purpose. And when you're a person of personal development like yourself and you've got experience, sometimes you're like, man, how much did we get into? And it's like, no. What we call foundational, other people think is revelational. My pastor taught me that. And so you definitely shared some concrete stuff for people to use. We talked about transferable skills. We talked about being able to identify your blind spots. We talked about having thick skin. We talked about constructive criticism. We talked about vegetables, 9 servings a day. We talked about your journey of a very defining moment in your life that I've seen a lot of people get stuck at the place of their pain. And you talked about the perspective that's necessary to see beyond pain and a purpose. And so these are all great lessons. So, man, I know we just scratched the surface, but there's so many nuggets that if you're just now tuning at the end, I encourage you to go back and listen to the story, listen to the principles that were shared, because they're timeless and they can help you move your life forward. So make sure you connect with Jeff. And remember, if you guys don't know this, we are able to offer our book now for free. So if you're an athlete and you're looking for how do I transition, go over to lifeaftersportsbook.com and you can access it. You just pay for shipping, whatever. I tell people, literally, it's not like a $16.95 upsell. Like, it's literally, we make 2 cents per book. So we found a way to do that. Some generous donors made that happen. And if you do want to support beyond that, you just buy the upsells. We've got courses and stuff that you can buy to help with your life after sports and help you to really pivot to your next thing, because it feels good to get moving. We talked about that. Jeff said that clarity comes in movement. You're not going to get clear by just sitting there and wallowing in what was. You have to start moving and trying new things. Took him 10 years. And with our resources, it can hopefully take you shorter than 10 years. So,
and I enjoyed the 10 years. The 10 years was discovery and adventure and fun. I just didn't know who the heck I was, but it wasn't a black hole for 10 years. It was, but after that, I was like, okay, now I know what the rest of my life is now.
There you go. It took you 10 years, kind of find that flow to that.
Yeah.
Kind of like
exactly.
Soaring in the desert till you find the living water, right? Like that's
The only way through the desert is to keep walking.
That's true. So there you go. So it's not all gloomy. Not everybody fell into the dark hole like Daryl.
Well, let me just end with this, Daryl. I think it's important to me. There are a lot of people going through a lot of pain, and I never want to minimize pain. I know about pain. Most of my pain has been physical pain, not emotional pain. Mm-hmm. Physical pain, it is sometimes lesser than emotional pain. Emotional pain can be, extremely traumatic and very deep. And so that's where I don't even know is because I haven't walked in those people's shoes myself. And so, but I will say, and a wise mentor told me this long ago, is, the people that you admire, the people that you respect, that, your favorite movies of all time or your favorite characters, chances are, being able to imagine yourself being able to share those great stories, 5 years from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. We admire those people that have walked through shit. That have walked through hard times. Mm-hmm. Those are all the stories that we gravitate to. Those are all the stories that mean anything to any of us is those stories. And so, it should just help people that are in the midst of it right now know that, you have battle wounds, you have scars, you have wounds, and someday you'll be able to tell wise stories to the next generation about those wounds and about those times. So,
yeah, I love it. You're in my lane now. I often tell people that the fact that you're struggling isn't a sign that you're weak. It actually is a proof that you're strong.
Oh my God, it's the fundamental single unifying theme of the universe when it comes to humans. It's we all have pain in 1,000 shades of gray and black and white and all and above. And so pain is the fundamental premise of the human condition. So you're not a unicorn. That's the good news. You're not a unicorn. Yeah. You're all in it. We're all in this together.
But it's that perspective, right? So if I were watching you train and you're lifting and I see you struggling with weight and you lift it, it's like, oh my God, you're strong, you're amazing. But if we see somebody struggling emotionally, spiritually, and they're having a rough time, they're battling depression, they're struggling with anxiety, it's oftentimes not perceived as a person who's pushing heavy weight. But it is the same. One's physical, one's emotional. And so I tell people that the fact that you still find the willpower to get up in the morning when you don't even want to, the fact that you still find the willpower to go to work, even though you feel like, man, I'm making minimum wage, the fact that you find a way to keep going when the going gets tough, it's evidence that you're actually stronger than what you think you are. So
Absolutely.
that was a phenomenal way to end. I'm glad you went there. So guys,
well, and the final thing is mentors helped me. Mentors helped me. And so if you don't have mentors in your life, there's an invitation to the treasure hunt right there. Go get some mentors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mentors have changed my life. And find somebody. Reach out to Jeff. Reach out to myself. Reach out to people in your network. You never know until you ask.
That's right.
And that's what David Meltzer taught me. He said, I asked him, what's the number one advice you have for me? He said, ask for help.
That's straight out of the Bible, man. Ask, seek, knock. There you go.
Ask, seek, knock. Ask, seek, knock. Well, guys, we love you. I want you to remember that no matter what you've been through, no matter how many trials you face, no matter how good you were in sports, that your best days are always ahead of you and never behind you. So keep that in mind and make sure you go out there and finish strong. Till next time, peace.